So we are so excited to be here today in our Morning Bite series. This is our first Morning Bites for this week, and it is our honor to welcome Derrick Vignes. Derrick Vignes and I have had the opportunity, and I've had the honor of working with him. He was actually my boss at one point in my career, so we had the opportunity of co-leading the middle school together at one point in the American School of Brasilia. And then he was also a great coach and mentor for my academic life, for my professional life, and for my leadership career as well. Derrick is a great inspiration, a global leader, a true global citizen. He has worked in multiple places around the globe, to include Turkey and Brazil and Canada, just to name a few. And today, Derrick is here to share some of his knowledge and wisdom with us. Derrick has a master's in international education and a PhD in school administration and leadership. So it's with great pleasure and honor, Derrick, that we welcome you, and we're ready to learn so much from you this morning.
Great. Well, thank you. Namaste. Thank you very much. It's great, first of all, to connect with you. Thank you, Priscilla, for the opportunity to be able to speak with you about things that are important to us. I think anytime we have the opportunity to talk about our passion and our purpose and what is of value to us as educators and people, it reignites a fire within all of us. So my hope today is that I can share a few nuggets of information for all of you out there that may be able to kind of help you decide what you're going to do next or what you're going to do tomorrow, and how you can simultaneously add value to yourself while adding value to other people at the same time. So what I would like to be able to do is just kind of use a bit of a PowerPoint to guide me through some of my conversation. And if there are questions that come up, Priscilla, maybe you can just chime in as any time as you get the questions, and I'd be happy to field the questions as they come up. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen with you. Let me make sure I got this done properly. Let me do that again. So I think I'm up, right? And I think one of the things that I've kind of come to understand over my 30 some odd years in education, taking on many different roles, is the value in trying to figure out how to be able to perform at your optimal level on a consistent basis. And it's not one of those things where you just say, well, I want to be a high performer at work. We need to find ways to weave high performance into everything we do, whether you're a parent, whether you're a learner, whether you're an administrator, whether you're working in business, whatever your role is in our society, performing at your best is something that many people want to be able to do. So what I like to do is kind of share some of my thoughts, some of my reflections, and some research that I've been able to kind of to find out that talks a little bit about how do we, as educational learners and leaders, continue to push ourselves so we can teach and learn at a high performance. And it comes down to a couple simple things that I would like to share with you. But I first want to begin with a very simple premise, is a belief that if we are going to improve our performance at the highest level, the ability to eliminate interference becomes very, very key. And I think this is something that we all understand and realize from time to time, is saying, well, I really want to do this, but I just don't have time because other things are in my life that I can't really get rid of or that are getting in the way. One of the things that we need to do is to become more aware of what we do and develop a sense of responsibility or accountability as to how we are going to take action on what we've come to know through our awareness, and make the next step towards achieving our potential at the highest level. So what I want to do first is I just kind of want to share a little bit of research. A gentleman named Morton Hansen had done some research back in 2011. And he is also one of the co-authors of working with Jim Collins. He didn't co-author Good to Great, but he co-authored Jim Collins' follow-up book. So he's very much on the same mindset of Jim Collins in terms of what makes people great, what makes people perform at their highest level. So his major question was, why, given all things being equal, be it education, be it opportunity, be it time in the work, be it the schools, giving all things equal, why do some people continue to achieve success higher than other people? And maybe we've been in this situation before where we've worked with colleagues and we're all putting in the hours and we all have the same educational background and we all have the same support, but some people are just able to achieve success a little bit more than others. Why is that? So what I'm going to do is just kind of share with you a little bit of the results to kind of give you an understanding what he came up with. And as you can see, 5,000 participants, almost 1,000 different sample instruments were used to be able to compile this together. What he was able to find is much of the success, or very little of our success, about 10% or 20% in total, deals with demographics and hours at work. Demographics refers to where you went to school, gender, how long you've been at the job. Those account for maybe 10% of people's ability to perform higher than the others. The other piece is about 10% was this interesting study he did on work and hours. What he was able to figure out through his research is that when people put in a lot of work, right, focused work, it only works up to a certain point. So what he was able to calculate is that when we work up to about 50 hours a week, all right, focused work, then our performance improves. However, the interesting part is anytime after 50 hours, right, whether it's focused or not, our performance starts to decrease. So this idea of doing more, packing more in, becomes counterproductive in this particular case. And a lot of us feel that, you know, the idea of we got to put in more work, we got to put in more work, we're up, you know, 60 hours a week, 65 hours a week, but we feel like our wheel is spinning, we're not gaining any traction. It's because of this idea that just because you're putting in more hours, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to perform at the highest level. So being very, very deliberate in terms of how many hours you're putting in a week and the type of work you're putting in becomes very, very critical as an indicator for high performance. The other 24% has to do a lot, as he says, with luck and talent. Just being in the right place, the right time, or just being naturally gifted at certain things. So that would account for a part of that, almost a quarter of the samples. The big piece is this idea of 7 particular habits. I'm going to touch on a few of them today, but these habits probably make up the largest percentage of what people do on a regular basis to be able to form at that highest level and be able to achieve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a couple of these, kind of share some of my personal insights and experiences about it. And if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to kind of pass them through, and it'd be my pleasure to answer them. So I think one of the first things that the research came out with is this idea of passion and purpose. For many, they believe passion alone is what will get them to where they want to be. And the research ended up kind of sharing this idea that passion and purpose needs to work together. This idea of a focused energy, bringing 2 major focal points together. What do you love? And does what you love add value to other people? What the research did find is that people who had passion, but their purpose was more selfish, was more about them, did not perform as well in terms of high level performance as people who performed with the purpose of adding value to other people. And I think this is an interesting point, is that just because you have a passion for tennis and you want to be the best tennis player in the world because you want to be a champion, that's one thing. But if you're passionate about tennis and your purpose is to challenge your opponents and make them better, then what eventually is going to happen is you in turn are going to get better because of that focused energy that you're putting in place. So if the focus is on other people with your passion, the likelihood of higher performance will increase significantly. If the purpose is more egocentric, then the likelihood of high performance slightly drops a little bit. So as educators, we are all in this career or this vocation because we love what we do. And we love seeing the lights turn on in the children's eyes when they get something that they were struggling with. So this idea of helping kids grow and develop to be the people that they want to become is in fact a viable purpose. What we do or why we do it also is very viable. So the question is, how can we be more deliberate with what our passion is and what our purpose is? Yes, I love to work with kids, but why children and not adults? Why children and not senior citizens? What is it about children that I'm very passionate about in terms of teaching them that may be different from adults or from elderly people? And what is the purpose of my passion in teaching? Is my purpose just to teach because I need a job? Or is my purpose because I want to make a difference? And if you want to make a difference, what type of difference do you want to make? The more deeper you can go, the more focused your energy will become. And I'm going to kind of add on to that in a little bit in a second. This idea that if it adds value to society, all right, which your mission does. You know, I've taken some time and I'm looking at the Escola Concept mission, and this idea of creativity and trying to find ways to ignite an energy in your students is what the value is that you're offering. The second thing about the research talked about this idea of do less and obsess. Now, traditionally, when we think of people who obsess, we don't see it as a very positive thing. We see it as something that tends to have more of a negative connotation to it. But the idea of obsessing over something that you are passionate about and that has a purpose, it becomes a really valuable driving force to be able to help you achieve at this highest level. So the question that I would ask you is, what do you want to do? All right, what do you do or what do you want to do better than anyone else? As a teacher in grade 2 or in grade 4, all right, you are a high functioning teacher, but to be exceptional at what you do, what is the one thing that you want to do better than anybody else? All right, it could be this idea of inquiry-based learning. I am going to spend all my time and energy into inquiry-based learning, and I'm going to be the best teacher in that field. Everything else that you do will link into this idea of inquiry-based. If it is positive education and positive psychology that you want to be the best at in your school community, that is something that you can also focus into, because everything else you do in the classroom is in terms of the curriculum will fall under the umbrella of positive education. Whether it's differentiation or technology integration, find something that you are really passionate about and dig really, really deep into it and become that expert, because that is when you're going to really start to create a community that is going to live up and support your mission. You talked about this idea of curiosity and relevance and purpose and that caring and open-minded. These are all attributes that you want to espouse within your community and within your students. The question that I have is, what are you going to be the expert at in contributing to this mission and to this vision? I think that becomes very, very helpful in terms of establishing what I call your pedagogical compass, all right, that keeps you honest and keeps you direct and keeps you focused on what your particular point is going to be. If we do not have a clear understanding of our pedagogical compass, which is your mission, or excuse me, your purpose, and what you and your passion, then it makes it very difficult for all of us, me included, to be consistent with what it is that we are trying to do and to trying to be really, really competent and excel at as a high performance learner.
Derrick,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but while you've been talking about what do you do or want to do better than anyone else, as I reflect on those words, this connects to Simon Sinek's idea of finding your why, right? Starting with the why, right? Always thinking about what is your why so that you can understand your motivations and your purpose and why you're doing what you're doing. And it also reminds me of two other authors, one from the book, The One Thing, finding that one thing that you want to focus on. And then I connect that to Malcolm Gladwell and the whole idea of the 10,000 hours that I know there's a lot of controversy behind that, but the whole idea of the 10,000 hours. Do you want to talk about those connections and kind of reflect on that a little bit with us?
Yeah, sure. Well, Simon Sinek in his book, Why, it was a great community read that we had at our school not too long ago. And I couldn't help but come to realize as well that, Friedrich Nietzsche talked about the importance of focus in this concept of why, and it even goes back to Socrates. So it's not a new concept that understanding what our why is and determining what our passion is to kind of help us exceed at what we do. This is something that is going on for hundreds of years through very, very established philosophical minds. And so this idea of just deciding why we are going to do something and being able to be very critical about it is going to ensure that the reason or the purpose for us doing it is going to be deliberate. It's going to be very specific. And the first question anybody should ask is, why are we doing it? The second question is, how is this going to help somebody else? Is it just going to help me? Or is it going to help my community or my students? So I think this whole idea of this, first find out the why, first find out your passion, first find out your purpose is, I think, is something that should be at the forefront of all our minds. I remember, I don't know if Priscilla, if you remember this, but I remember back in Brasilia, one of the things that I used to ask my teachers is, what is your personal mission? What is your purpose as an educator? And for many people, it was a really, really difficult question to ask because they never really thought about why they are doing what they're doing. Why did they pick education? And for us to become really deliberate about our own why and our own purpose, again, helps us keep us focused and on the right track as to why we're doing what we're doing. It maintains our sense of vitality for what we're doing. It keeps us with having this growth mindset where we're allowing new information to come in and help inform the people that we are going to become that we do not know yet. We are constantly evolving, and asking the why and understanding your purpose and having a very clear direction of where you're going is going to continue to help us evolve as educators and, more importantly, as people. So, the idea of the book is a fantastic read, but it's a reminder of things that we should be doing all the time. When we have our children and we tell them to do something, the first question is why? Why do I need to clean up my room? Why do I need to eat all the broccoli on my plate? Well, we also have to be able to have a legitimate reason as to why they're doing it. You can't just say, because I said so. All right. We want to have a legitimate understanding of the purpose towards cleaning your room, the purpose towards eating your broccoli. All right. So even on a simplistic level, the value of the connection between purpose, okay, and having what your own direction is going to be in terms of your own mission, all right, and your own passion is one way to really clear our mind and get rid of all the other clutter that's going around to allow us to really focus and perform at the highest level. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of clutter in a minute. So I would like you to think about this. Imagine a school, and I know the Concept School is a very, very high-performing school. I've had the privilege of being there and seeing it, and I know Priscilla very, very well. So I know this is a very high-functioning school. But when I talk to people in general, I often have them imagine this idea of a faculty where within your faculty, you have experts in various areas of education and pedagogy. People who are experts in community service or classroom management or experiential learning, positive, whatever. We have a group, a community who are experts in a certain field that we can rely on for support in any of these other disciplines. And it reminds me back when Daniel Pink talked about what drives us, what are the things that motivate us. He comes to this idea of purpose. All right, we need to have our purpose. We need to feel that we can master something. We want to be a high performer, and we want to have that autonomy to be able to do it. So when I think of a school, in my mind, I'm thinking of a school, of a community where we have teachers who have a very clear purpose and have a very, very, very clear passion, and they've decided on an area of education that they want to be the best at. This is their hedgehog. And once that begins to get established within a school community, the capacity for the school to be able to exceed their vision or exceed their mission becomes even more substantial because you have more experts in certain areas that are collaborating with each other and supporting each other in different areas. So your school becomes a sort of a petri dish for professional development and learning with even without going outside the school, to a point where you have people actually coming to your school to seek out professional development and professional experience. So my vision for education, or my own vision for schools, is to be able to develop the capacity of teachers, all right, find out what their passion is, find out what their purpose is, develop them and cultivate them to be the best they can be at that particular area, and be able to share that with the rest of the community. And I think if we're able to do that, we are going to feel revitalized. There's going to be a sense of vitality that is going to grow within us, a sense of excitement, a need or a drive to keep going, while at the same time you're driving everybody else's passion and excitement. And my sense is Concept School is doing this type of thing, because I know Priscilla very well, and what Priscilla loves to do is she really loves to get people excited about finding their passion. So my question is, can you identify individually what your specific passions are and become the best person at that?
Yeah, Derrick, this is so interesting because just recently during this pandemic, one of the things that we've really taken to heart at Escola Concept in our leadership team, and since we have 3 schools, so amongst the 3 schools, is that we're now working in squads. We already worked in squads in some areas of the school before, in areas specifically that reported to me, but now we've decided to amplify that vision throughout the entire leadership of the 3 schools. So what that means is we do need to capitalize on the expertise and on the knowledge base that each member of the team brings. And what I keep reinforcing to my team is the fact that, fortunately, we're not all designers, and fortunately we all don't know a ton about curriculum, and fortunately we're not all the masters of assessment, and fortunately we don't all know all about portfolio. Maybe some of us have a general overview of all those areas, but we have experts within our community that can lead those charges. So we have, the experts that can lead the charge on design, the ones that can do it in marketing, the ones that can do it in communication, and the ones that can do it in curriculum. And those are the people that then contribute their different pieces to bring our story of learning together. So I think that is just so powerful. But at the same time, when groups and teams haven't worked that way, it takes a little bit to adjust, because it might feel threatening, right? I don't know about this, and I thought that I had to know about this, and now I don't have that knowledge. Am I in the wrong place, or is there something wrong with me? Where in fact, it's beautiful that you don't, because you're also giving other people the chance to flourish and to grow and develop.
No, the growth mindset can be very intimidating for a lot of people, because they really have to get out of your comfort zone. And you really have to be willing to accept failure as a means of moving forward. And when you get in these collaborative groups, it can be very intimidating when you're talking with a colleague who knows a lot about assessment and you don't know that much. But at the same time, you need to feel humble enough to be able to embrace that and say, I don't know a lot about assessment, but I'd really like to learn. But I can tell you one thing I'm really passionate about is community service. So how can we kind of link in this concept of community and our assessment practices? Where is there a link? Can we find a link to work together? And that's where a lot of the beauty really starts to happen within schools. And as I said, Concept is a high-performing school. And so a high-performing organization. So a lot of these pieces are probably already in place. But for many schools, this is one of those things where I work in my silo, I do my thing, and every now and then I will talk and share what my successes are. But that celebration is very, very isolated. So what we want to do is we want to be able to open our doors, or open our minds, open our professional expertise, and share, give it away. We want to give away what we know. And one of the things that I've really come to appreciate, as someone who's embarking on this journey of performance and professional coach, is this idea of giving away my time and my support to help people who want to get better at what they do. So my invitation to anybody out there is, if you have an idea of something that you want to work on and you want to be coached through that process, I'm very happy to give my time to support you in being able to be the best person you can be. So I'm just throwing that out there. So if anybody is looking for coaching, contact Priscilla, get in contact with me, and it would be my pleasure to be able to help you throughout a process in which you are going to get better, because you know what? I'm going to also get better from that. It is very much reciprocal. So for that reason, it is my pleasure to be able to help people become the best they can be.
Wow. With that being said, Derrick, I think you have the first taker. I'm going to take you up on that offer. I definitely need a coach, and I would not mind having you as a coach again in my career. That would be awesome. And that is very generous of you. So I do hope that we do have some takers out there so that they can work with you and be mentored and inspired and learn from you along the process. So thank you for that.
Yeah, not at all. My pleasure. One of the things that I've really become very, very invested in is this concept of P equals P minus I. I had read a book probably about 20 years ago where this concept or this formula came up. And probably in the last 5 years, it reappeared. And I'm saying, wow, I remember this from quite a time back. And it goes back to this idea of a gentleman named Tim Galloway, who talked about this idea in terms of developing our own inner strength, our inner self, that our performance, our high performance is equal to our potential only if we can get rid of the interference. The only way we can perform at our highest level, all right, to be able to perform at our potential is if we are able to get away the things or minimize the interference in our lives. And this interference takes on many, many different forms. If it is that what you want to do is to be able to be the best person, the best parent, the best teacher, the best doctor, whatever it is, you have to first determine what are the things that are getting in my way that are preventing me from doing this. And there are a number of factors, and some of them may be legit, but at the same time, we have to also be realistic that if this is something we really are passionate about, we really want to get better at, we need to be honest, brutally honest with ourselves and say, wow, these are some things that are getting in my way that I'm really going to have to make some changes with. Now, one of the things that comes up is this idea of spreading ourselves too thin. The challenge, and I'm just going to flash a couple of these up really quick. The problem with highly talented teachers and people who are passionate is they cannot say no. They have a hard time telling their boss, no, I don't want to do this, or no, I can't do it, because they are so passionate. They have a can-do attitude. They want to be a part of the solution. Unfortunately, by not being able to say no, you are spreading yourself too thin. You are slicing and dicing. You are doing things half-assed to the point where you will not be able to perform at your best. So being able to say no in a positive way, being able to understand that I can't take on this extra thing even though I want to, it's going to impact your productivity. And it's going to take away something that we all talk about, is this idea of time. My idea of this time is a great equalizer for everybody, all right? Age, gender, nationality, time has no boundaries. The factor with time is that the people who are going to excel at that highest level are the people who know how to use their time very effectively. And effectively meaning by being able to say no, I already have enough on my plate. Not spreading yourself thin and trying to find ways to bring a sense of focus into your life where the things that are interfering become less and less and less. The researchers say the less interference, the greater focus, the higher your productivity. And it sounds like a very simple thing to do, but we all have life, and all of these things are happening simultaneously going on that we have to be able to juggle and do. So my thought is, let's just focus maybe on work right now. During your work day, what are some of the things that are getting in the way of you being able to perform at your highest level? And are those things essential things that you need to maybe redistribute or find another way to deal with them? Or are they things that don't really add value to you or anything else, for example? So one of the things that I do to keep myself honest is I have this formula in front of my desk. And every time I see myself trying to maybe slide where I'm not giving my best, or anytime I see where I'm in a situation where I want to take on one extra thing, I realize that my performance is going to be impacted by that. And as a basketball coach, one of the things I tell my athletes is that they want to do everything. They want to do everything really, really well. And I say, well, look at your strengths. What are your skill sets that you're really, really good at? Focus on one or two of those things, and those one or two things are going to better support the greater good of the team, so the team will be successful. And by you focusing on one of those teams, your performance will become successful in those domains as well, and you will be noticed, because many of the athletes that I coach right now are seeking US scholarships. So I'm able to kind of sit down with the athletes and say, what do you do best? What are your strengths? And how can we cultivate those strengths so you are performing at your optimal level? And what are the things that are getting in the way that we need to take away to allow you the time, to allow you to focus, to work at your highest performance? Now, we have all been faced with this incredible challenge. You know, and some places are hit a lot harder than others. But remote learning is really forcing us to redesign how we work. And this is one of the other things that has came up in Hans's research, is our ability to adapt, okay, to change is critical for us to be able to continue to perform at our highest level or at a higher level. So one of the questions that I ask myself, or that I ask anybody else, is how can isolation and distancing improve our performance? What are the things that we can learn right now as we are in isolation, as we're social distancing, that can help us perform at a higher level as educators? Has our passion, has our purpose changed? These are questions that if we were able to reflect on and come to a sense of understanding of where we are and what's important to us, I believe that our ability to perform at a higher level than we are right now is something that we'll be able to achieve. And I think one of the beauties of this whole thing about isolation and distancing, it has caused us or forced us to slow down a little bit. Slow down to the point where we can reflect. Think about some of the things that are important to us. Think about spending time with family, but also think about what are some of the new innovative ideas that I have that I would like to try, that I would like to experiment with, that is going to help me become a more effective teacher, while at the same time is going to have an impact on my students in terms of them becoming a better learner. So if we were kind of to go back and summarize a number of things here, keeping in mind that we do not want to go past this idea of 50 hours, the question is, what's next? What are you going to do now that you have a basic understanding of some things that you can input in your own life that is going to have an immediate impact, not only on the people that you care about, but on yourself as well? So what's next for you? One of the things that I would ask you to do is spend some time and think about what your passion and purpose is. You can't really get anywhere unless that has been established. And this is what I refer to as a pedagogical compass. This is your direction arrow. This is what's going to keep you pointing north on a consistent basis and not sway from east to west. So passion, purpose, have it written, have it understood, recite it, have it become a part of your daily mantra. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. The next piece is to connect with a colleague. Maybe you have somebody in your school community that has a similar passion or purpose, and that you could collaborate on a particular area of educational pedagogy with. And excuse me, once you've got that person, then it's to be coached. Then we go through a process where you're looking at what your goals are with this newfound passion and purpose. What are the realities? What are the things that are going on in your life right now? All right, that are impacting your performance. What are some of the options that you have? What are some of the things that are obstacles that are in your way? And what's next? What is my way forward? What is the next thing that I am going to do to move towards excellence and high performance? it's at a point now where we have to make it happen. I had read a while ago that when people go to conferences and presentations, they go to those for many reasons. And one of the things that I've come to realize or come to learn is that only 30% of the people that attend conferences actually go back and implement stuff that they've done. And the reason that they're able to do that is because within the first 24 to 48 hours, they've already started making deliberate steps towards implementing whatever it is new that they've come to know. So my challenge to all of you is, if it is that you want to develop yourself to become that high performer, within the next 36 hours, define what your passion and purpose is, right? Then afterwards, once that has been established, connect with a colleague. Now, the passion and purpose thing is something that if you were to do in the next 24 to 36 hours, it is going to hold you accountable to what it is that you want to be able to do next. If it waits beyond 2 days, then the likelihood of it happening is probably going to be significantly less. So my call to you is, what is your passion and purpose? Find somebody to connect with. And if you can get coaching or get support to go through a process of goals, reality, options, and way forward, you will then be able to make it happen. So this idea of redesigning the way we do our work, doing less to obsess, and this P equals P minus I are tools or ideas that you can use to kind of help you get to that next level in terms of where you want to be as a high performance teacher, or even a high performance learner, or a high performance parent. And for that, if it is that you need support to be able to get you to where you want to go, there are people out there who are willing to help you on your journey. It's interesting, the word coach. When we think of the word coach, we either think of an athletic coach, or we think of, in English anyways, we think of like a coach bus or coach train or flying in coach in an airplane. Interesting thing about coaching is that coaching is all about the journey. So if you're kind of looking at a train or a bus, this concept of coach is a means of transportation from getting the person from A to B. The exact same thing as professional coaching or performance coaching. It's all about you getting you from where you are with your passion and purpose to an end result and achieving your goal. And that process can be messy, but it's also very, very beautiful. A friend of mine who lives in India once said that the lotus flower, a beautiful flower, is something that grows in mud. And sometimes we have to get dirty for beauty to really, really surface. And being afraid not to fail and having a growth mindset and being willing to collaborate and share your ideas and try new things, especially during this time, is an opportunity for innovation and excellence really, really to surface within all of us. And I'd be very, very interested to see how education is now going to change within the next 6 months as a result of this new reality that we're all living in. So that's where I am, Priscilla.
Thank you so much, Derrick. Wow, what a treat. I think that it was an even bigger treat for us at the Escola Concept community, for the leaders and for the educators who today had the opportunity to start off our days with some yoga. We began our day celebrating wellness and just well-being in general, and also celebrating the International Day of Yoga that happened on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And when you leave that yoga session and then you listen to your talk and how it connects to passion and purpose and to goals, and the whole idea that you mentioned of the lotus flower, of having to get dirty, having to get muddy before the beauty is going to surface. I think that really resonated with myself, and I hope with other members of this community today.
Yeah. No, it's one of the things that I try to remind myself all the time, because we all want to strive for perfection, and sometimes in our quest to strive for perfection, we don't want to step out of our comfort zone because we don't want to look imperfect, right? but we have to just understand that if it is that we are going to become a better person tomorrow than I am today, it's going to require me to do something different. I have to do something different today than I'm going to do tomorrow if I am going to grow. And it could be something as simple as if I'm a runner, or if I'm a biker, if I'm a cyclist. If I want to get better, I have to change something. I have to go a little bit further the next day if I am in fact going to get better. And that's how we as educators can kind of push ourselves as well. And we have colleagues to push ourselves and challenge ourselves and say, well, I really see you doing that. That's really interesting that I saw this particular strategy in your class. Can you explain to me why you're doing it? And not to be defensive about it, but just to understand that they're trying to get you to really think about the value of what you were doing in that particular classroom. So as teachers, when we are receiving feedback from our colleagues, we need to embrace that as an opportunity for growth and not as a criticism of what we're trying to do. And how we say that becomes very, very important. So this whole idea of classroom visits and teachers giving teachers feedback is an incredibly powerful tool. But how we ask those questions and what we're looking for becomes incredibly important if it is that we are going to push people to be able to try something different or even question why they're doing it. I don't know why I did this. It just came up as a good idea. Okay, did it work? How do you know it worked? All right, is this something that you would do again? Or what would you do different? Again, not to be defensive with this, but just to kind of get the mind thinking about what I can do to be better tomorrow.
Right. And I think that's so important, right, Derrick, because when we think about the culture that we live in, and thinking about Brazil in general, I think growth mindset and just being open to those questions and to those explorations, that's quite new for if you think about the history of Brazil and the history of work in Brazil and the history of work relationships in the country. So when we think about, having that growth mindset, for some people in the beginning can sound, it can sound a little intimidating, or it can even sound like, is this for real? Like kind of, that question, like, are you serious? Are you really helping me ponder? Are you really pushing my thinking? Are you really helping me to reflect? So I think that we also need to obviously grow the trust, right, in those communities so that we can.
Word vulnerable. I had the word vulnerable in my presentation. And when you translated that, when it was translated into Portuguese, the connotation from what I understood was very, very different because of the political history in Brazil. And people in no uncertain terms wanted to be vulnerable, because when they were exposed and vulnerable, it hurt them, it impacted them. So me not understanding that cultural context, I had to make sure that I was able to put it in a different perspective so that people would basically understand where I was coming from, as opposed to taking that word based on their own cultural experience. So Priscilla, I agree with you 100%. Understanding the culture is critical in terms of how we are going to foster or develop or cultivate a community where everybody can flourish. And that culture piece, someone once said, someone smarter than I once said, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I can't remember who said it, but I love it, because once we've accepted something as a community, it will overpower anything else that we may want to do or may try to do, because our culture is driven by our passion and our purpose. And if we're able to have a really strong culture, then our ability to exceed and be excellent and high performers becomes even more significant than using a strategy plan to guide us to become excellent.
Now that's so right, Derrick. And yes, that person smarter than all of us together, right, did say that that quote is something that we actually used and we reflected on when we first opened Concept, and we had the many hours, over 200 hours of professional development to get our teachers prepared for the school. We would talk a lot about that quote and the importance and significance of that to our communities, right? And what that would represent. But I just had a very interesting, I participated, it happened to be, I believe it was a Simon Sinek live. it was a really interesting live last week. Not sure if it was Simon Sinek or Brene Brown now, or one of these authors, but one of the things that they said, and that sometimes is so hard for us to believe, is the fact that you will always go through the mud, right? And that you will always go through the bumpy. You will always have to work hard, and that the overnight success does not just automatically happen, right? And I think, Derrick, and I just wanted to kind of gather your thoughts about this, because a lot of people sometimes, and especially with the pandemic and with the multi-generational work environments, people have these very different views about what does it mean to work hard, what does it mean to get down and dirty and to get muddy. And I think that I would love to hear your thoughts with regards to working hard to achieve something greater, right? And what that looks like and what that represents. I know that the two of us went through a lot of that in our careers back many years ago. But I would love to just for you to share your insights on a little bit of what that means.
Yeah, I think the idea of working hard, it's easy to work hard when you love something that you're doing. And this whole concept of flow kind of suggests, the research that goes into this idea of flow suggests the idea that we are performing at our optimal level when we are in a state of flow, when our mind is in this state of free fall, to the point where we are just doing what we do. And we are doing it really well because we've had those 10,000 hours or those multiple hours of time that we've put into it. So to be able to achieve that moment of flow, all right, there's a lot of work in the back end that goes into being able to get to that place where you can just be and do it. When you watch a ballet dancer performing, he or she's not thinking about anything that they're doing. They are just they are in that zone. They are in that state of flow. And all the work and concentrated time that they put in to all those years and hours of practice has allowed us to really appreciate the beauty that they are demonstrating to us. And we've all been in classrooms where things are just going, things are just clicking. And we're not, and the students are just picking up on things, and it's beautiful. And there's very little that we're actually controlling. The energy is what is controlling the pace of the learning in the classroom. So I think for a lot of us is, if we are trying to design or create a situation where we want to be in a state of flow, which is reflective of being able to perform at your highest level, then what we need to do is start to begin a process of being really honest with ourselves and saying, what are the things that are getting in our way? Am I watching too much Netflix during the course of my day? Could I be spending that time doing something else that is more productive? I'm not saying watching 4 hours of TV is not a bad thing or a good thing, but we need to decide, how is that helping me with my purpose and what I'm very passionate about? So taking a hard look at ourselves, becoming aware, and then being responsible and act on our own sense of awareness. I think for a lot of the basketball players that I coach who are performing at the university level and who have aspirations to play and the capacity to play at the professional level, one of the challenges they have is distractions of technology and worrying about what other people are saying about their ability to perform. So what we do is we say, okay, no social media on the bus. Because if they're looking at all these tweets and things that are coming in about what they're saying and what they're doing and how they're feeling, it starts to play on their psyche and they start to doubt themselves. So that is one thing of an aspect or an example of how that interference will affect their performance when they go on the court to play the game. So as a coach, as a teacher, even in the classroom, what are the things that are impacting my kids that are taking away from their concentration? And since some schools, it could be just not eating for breakfast. That impacts them. It could be distractions that are going on at home. So my biggest thing that I can share about being in a position of excellence and to perform at your best is to kind of understand, where you are, what you want to do, and who are the people around you that can support you. All right. And we all have friends that are just friends, great to hang out with, but we have friends that can push us and that can motivate us. We want to be able to hang out and spend time with people who are going to push and challenge us in our capacity to be better at what we do. And you find these places, you find these people in very, very unusual spaces sometimes. And I remember many years ago, when I was much younger, is that when I was hiking around Europe, is I would run into people on the street who were homeless, and they would tell me their stories. And it really forced me to think about myself, what's important to me. It forced me to think about being grateful. It forced me to think about all the things that get in my way. And it had a profound effect on me when I came back from that trip, because I now, in fact, felt more grateful because of the value this particular person was able to give to me, unbeknownst to him. But the fact that I was kind of open up to be able to accept and say, wow, I can really learn from this person if I just take the time to listen to what he has to say.
Wow, what a lesson. And I think with that, that's a perfect way for us to close. This is a perfect segue as well, Derrick, into our newsletter. We're getting ready to publish this month's newsletter next week. And last night and this morning, we were having lots of conversation about the spotlight, like the title of this newsletter. What would be the focus of our conversation with our community? And listening has come up as the big theme. And then we pushed it a little further. You know, we were like, well, listening for learning and understanding. And then we thought about the habit of mind, listening with understanding and empathy, which is one of the 16 habits of mind that we work with. Yeah. And it is so interesting that you end your talk talking about the importance of just listening and being open to learning everywhere, right? Yeah. Learning can happen everywhere from all places and spaces. I think that COVID has showed that to us. And just being open to receiving the learning, right? I think is the best way to put it.
You're absolutely right. It's everywhere. There's always something happening around us that we can learn from. And listening and being aware is one of those things that will help us be better tomorrow.
And I just have to thank you, because I think that when I was very young, you taught me how to listen and the importance of listening to a lot of the coaching and mentoring that you invested in me. And thank you for that. But I do recognize that I did have to be open for that listening and open for that learning, because it wasn't always easy. Right? There were harsh moments. There are difficult moments. Sometimes there are questions that you have a hard time exploring. And sometimes there's feedback that you have a hard time listening to. But again, being open and listening and bringing that all together is just so vital and important to all of our growth and development. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And with that, we end our morning bites for today. And we can't wait to have all of you with us again on our In Mind series on Thursday with Fabio Brotto, talking about cooperative games and the whole idea behind that. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you. Thank you, Derrick.
Thank you. All right. Be good. Bye-bye.